Good morning, guys. It is me, Enneagram Fox, coming to you. Let's try that again. Hey guys, welcome to day one of the writing vlog. So this summer, my plan is to get a draft or two done of a story that I've been wanting to do for like 10 plus years now. I started doing it maybe in high school, like a little bit, but not very much. And so I've decided this is the summer that I finally need to sit down and do it. So every week I am going to put out a vlog where I am going to talk about the story and talk about the characters through the lens of the Enneagram, because I often struggle to create like fully formed characters, or at least like put that on paper, because like in my head the character would make sense, but on paper I leave out a lot of details, and not on purpose, but like, and I do understand, like oftentimes when you write, you have these characters and you know all these details about them, but you don't necessarily put that all in the story. However, it is really good to know those details when you are writing the story. So anyways, today is day one, and I will admit I did kind of start on this story a little earlier because if you can't tell, I am not at home. I am visiting on Long Island, which this is where my family is from. So I am here right now, and on the plane ride, I actually did a lot of work with this character because I had like so much time to kill. So let's start with my protagonist. I don't know if I should like tell you her name. It's a girl. That's about all I can share. Let's just call her my protagonist. So my protagonist, I often have viewed her as an extension of me, which I know like a lot of writers will say that. However, I have viewed her to be, what am I trying to say? This story, which I'm not going to dive into today, the story is a story that I thought of in high school when I basically been confronted with a situation, and I thought, man, if I did this, the consequences could be really bad. So I've always imagined my protagonist to be like me, because if she walked into this situation, it would be bad. And so it's that bad situation that I'm writing about. I know I have talked about myself as a type 4. However, I kind of see my protagonist as a type 9. I say that because there's a lot of characteristics of type 9s that I relate to, and I actually talked to a male type 4 a few months ago, and he even told me that he relates to a lot of parts of a type 9. So let me talk a little bit about a type 9 and like who they are. I've got it in my notebook right here. So type 9s often feel like they don't have a voice. They can't stand up for themselves, because if they do, then it's going to like kind of like be an interruption to their life. Whereas like a type 8 or even a type 3 might welcome a challenge, or might welcome someone who is, I don't know, like kind of being like a jerk to them. It might be like, great, this is my opportunity to, you know, put this person in their place. A type 9 would feel like, well, this is like a waste of my time. Like, I just want to enjoy myself. I just want to kind of enjoy the pleasures of life and not have to, you know, interrupt my inner harmony. And something I've always imagined about my protagonist, like literally since high school, I always imagined that she played piano. And maybe not necessarily like she loves piano and it's her whole personality, but I imagine that like she comes from a family where she's not been allowed to speak up, not allowed to be herself. And so they have, maybe she's like an only child, and her family, like, I don't want to say they're wealthy, but like they obviously have extra income. And so when she was growing up, they got her like piano lessons, right? Like it was just kind of like I need my child to be involved in something, and maybe she's not athletic, so we're gonna give her piano lessons. And so much of this story is about finding her voice, right? It's about, I kind of wanted to use that like sense of hearing, like the playing piano, not being afraid to maybe play for people who aren't her like instructor or her parents, and being able to then also like speak up for herself and feel like it's okay to disrupt. I don't even feel like that's a great term for it, but like it's okay to disrupt my inner harmony to assert myself. Anyways, I feel like I said a lot of stuff that maybe didn't make sense to you because I'm still working out this character. So on the plane yesterday, I was able to, I'm gonna cover up her name, but I was able to do basically 2 pages about her. So what I'm gonna do is continue with that today, maybe fill up 2 more pages, and then we will talk about it a little bit later. Hey guys, so I've done some more character development today for my protagonist. I will say another detail I will give is that she is supposed to be a teenager. I'm thinking like 17 years old. Let me write that down. So what I did for developing this character is I literally looked up on Pinterest character development, and I had a bunch of things pop up that were like questions to ask yourself when you're developing a character. So I screenshot the list, and I asked myself these questions and wrote them down. So I have, of course, like my first, let me cover up the name. First 2 pages, all about my protagonist are done. And then I didn't quite get a full page, but it's a lot. Let me share a few of the things that I did. So again, protagonist type 9, they often felt growing up that they were not allowed to speak. They were not allowed to speak their minds, and often felt very ignored, not necessarily overshadowed, but just like overshadowed by like a sibling, but maybe they were just not allowed to express their needs freely. Like if they did, then it became like a, hey, this is not all about you kind of thing, which I do understand. Like for a lot of parents, you do want to tell your kids like, hey, the world's not revolve around you, which is true. However, not validating feelings only creates adults who don't validate their own feelings. And it's not like in a selfless way, it's in a like, I need to grieve, but I'm not going to grieve, or I am going to be angry, but I'm going to ignore the anger because no one cares if I'm angry, so I'm not even going to acknowledge that this makes me mad. And it causes them to not assert themselves. And so that's my protagonist's problem. So, okay, we'll go into some of the details. One of the first things I did, and this is something I've heard like a lot of writers talk about this, but it's knowing what your character likes to eat for breakfast. And all I thought was she most likely eats whatever her parents get her. And so I would say that would be like typical teen things. Like her parents would just like go buy her cereal because that's what teens eat. Or maybe she said she really likes Lucky Charms. I'm just gonna name one. And then, mom or dad was like, okay, so you like that cereal. But then when they go out, they forget what kind she likes. So they just buy her what she thinks, or they buy her what they think she likes. And then the protagonist just kind of never asserts herself and says, hey, I don't like when you buy me Frosted Flakes. And so that was another thing. Her like major flaw. That's also something that I hear a lot of people talk about. A lot of writers, their characters each have like a major flaw. And so I said that for herself, right? So when this character, if she's having to evaluate herself, I think she would say her big flaw is that she is unable to get over her past. And I said this because I did speak with a type 9 once. I know several type 9s, but there was one in particular who said that she wished she could just get over things from the past. And I don't know if that had to do with holding grudges, but I think it had to do with just feeling hurt in the past and just not being able to get over it, which is something this type 4 who's ADHD can definitely relate to. So I thought that was a good one for this character. However, I think others would say that she doesn't stand up for herself. I'm going to talk about one of her best friends later in another vlog. But I think that character is going to be a type 8. And type 8s are very good at pointing out weaknesses or strengths. So I think like this best friend would say that this protagonist doesn't stand up for herself. All right, what are some other things? I know earlier I talked about her hearing and sound and how that's going to play an important part in the story. And where I got that from was a question that said, which of the 5 senses does this character rely on the most? And I said hearing. For example, she plays piano. I know I talked about that. I have a certain song that I want to include to help her remember something from the past. I won't talk about that now. I'll do that later when I get into like the story. And then I had an idea for another song that is going to be something she associates with like what's going on in the book. So more present. Let's see. Another great question was, does your character prefer coffee or tea? I'm a coffee drinker. I love coffee. I do like tea also. However, I did think for her, there's going to be an antagonist character and it's going to be a guy. And I was thinking like, well, he would definitely be a coffee drinker, maybe even like a black coffee drinker. And so I was thinking the protagonist should be the opposite. Now, where this comes from is many years ago, actually, I dated someone who really liked wine, and I am not a wine drinker. I have tried all different kinds of wine in different contexts. I just don't enjoy wine. And I told him this, and yet he would still, I think it's like a Southern hospitality thing, or just being, I don't know, polite in general, but he would like bring bottles of wine over. And so we would drink it, and there was an occasion where I had like a get together and I invited him, and so he brought wine to that, which was nice because other people drink wine. But after that, he was like, you need wine glasses. And I was like, I'm fine with my non-wine glasses because I don't really care. I didn't say that part, the I don't care part, but he then, for that Christmas, he bought me a set of wine glasses. which was very nice. But I also got rid of them like as soon as we broke up because I don't drink wine. I don't think I had a bottle of wine in my house since I dated that guy. Well, maybe once because I did get wine as a gift. But anyways, I don't enjoy wine. And so of course I got rid of the wine glasses as soon as he wasn't in my life anymore. And so like I was reminded of that when I read this, like, does your character prefer a coffee or tea question? And I just felt like she would really like tea, but this antagonistic character would try to like turn her on to coffee. And her being a type 9, she might like try to justify herself enjoying coffee and not realizing I don't want to drink coffee until maybe like the end of the book. So that's something to play with. I felt like she should be very naive. And there's no particular Enneagram type that's like super naive. Like any of them can be. Like I think that has more to do with maturity than anything else. Like not like a personality thing. But I was incredibly naive. I've always been the kind, I want to give people the benefit of the doubt. I don't want to think poorly of people. And type 9s can also be very empathetic and compassionate. And they really want to believe people when they say, you know, whatever, they want to believe them. And so they can be very naive in that sense. So I thought that would be a very important trait for this character. Another really cool question was like, what is your character's favorite fairy tale? And so I said Cinderella because she wants to be rescued, and much of the story is going to kind of parallel Cinderella, like maybe unintentionally, but it's going to be without the ending that this character expects. Because obviously, a lot of people and a lot of women of all ages do want to be rescued. Like, I think it sounds really nice, but oftentimes if that happens, a lot of times like the ending to that story is not, it's not happily ever after. It can be, and if that's your story, that's awesome. I'm not saying that like you're living a lie. I don't think that's true. And I don't know your story, so that's not my job to judge it. I'm just saying, oftentimes when you expect someone else to be your savior in some way, shape, or form, you're often very disappointed. And I kind of want my protagonist to feel that disappointment by the end of the book, if not sooner. And the next question was actually like, does your character believe in happy endings? And I said like, yeah, like I think she really wants to, and I don't think it necessarily happens the way she expects. Now again, the story is a trilogy. I think I mentioned that at some point. I don't know, maybe I did. Maybe I didn't, I don't know. But the story is gonna be a part of a trilogy, and so I think the protagonist is going to believe in happy endings, then not believe in happy endings, and then maybe believe happy endings aren't fairy tales, you know, like they're more realistic and they're full of joy, but they're also full of, you know, hard things because ultimately you're in a relationship with someone. And so that is awesome, and that is a joyful occasion. But I mean, if you're in a long-term relationship, you know, that comes with like compromise. Not that it should mean you are changing yourself, but sometimes you have to learn to let go, which I already talked about. She has a hard time letting go. So this is all, this is falling into place, guys. This is good. I like this a lot. Oh, okay. Her secret shame. That was another question. What's the secret shame? And I think it would be, I think ultimately, like, she would be most ashamed that she doesn't assert herself when maybe she wants to. And I really want to like see that throughout the story. Like I can imagine a few points where maybe she's faced with something, and instead of saying, I don't like that, she goes, okay, I guess so, and then goes along with what the antagonist does. And then this is the last thing that I'll say for today. There's a question about like which superpower would she like? And immediately I said flying, because I want that superpower. Like I would love to be able to fly. I still have dreams about flying, which is crazy in like the best possible way. But I've always wanted to be able to fly because I think it feels like I could still be a part of things if I wanted to, but I would also be like in a safe space, right? Like up in the sky. I could go up to the top of the tree. I could observe people. I could get around wherever I wanted to. I could fly over oceans. I could fly over a forest, and it would feel it would feel safe. It would feel like a comfort zone to me. And I think this character as a type 9 would very much appreciate that. But I also said she might want her superpower to be invisibility. And I only said that because she can do what she wants without being bothered if she's invisible. She could also like find out the truth about things, right? Like she wouldn't have to assert herself and maybe like question things. Like she could just, watch things play out and not have to like feel like she's being sneaky, because if you're invisible, like you're being sneaky without meaning to be. And so I don't know, that's an interesting question. I might have to circle back to that one later. All right, so for the rest of today, I think I'm gonna start on my story, but after I eat, because I am very hungry. I don't know if I'm gonna film any of that or not, we'll see. So I'm gonna eat, maybe read a little bit, and then end the day with some story writing.